400 yards. That is the length of 4 American football fields placed end to end. The distance an average person walks in under 4 minutes. A stretch of quiet road that a 10-year-old girl had traveled so many times before that she could have done it with her eyes closed. On the afternoon of Thursday, April 27th, 1967, a small girl in a red reversible jacket stepped out of Kilbride Public School in Burlington, Ontario, turned toward home, and began to walk. She never arrived. 57 years have passed since that afternoon. Investigators have searched fields, forests, and stretches of land that span an entire region of southern Ontario. 18,000 people joined the search in the weeks after she disappeared. Police received tip after tip after tip. A single blue running shoe was found 14 kilometers from her school. That was all they ever found. Her name was Marianne Schuett. She had ear-length brown hair with bangs and striking greenish-blue eyes. She stood 4 feet 6 inches tall and weighed 75 pounds. And she had 400 yards to walk. This is her story, and this is her file. Unfinished. Before we go any further, welcome to Unfinished Dossier. This channel exists for one reason: to tell mystery stories. If that is the kind of story you are here for, please hit subscribe right now so you never miss one. Every file has a story. Not every story has an ending. Let's open this one together. Right now, wherever you're watching this, I want you to do something for me. Look out the nearest window. Think about what 400 yards looks like from where you're standing. To a school, to a corner store, to a neighbor's house. That is the distance Marianne Schuett had to cover. In daylight, in a village where everyone knew everyone, on a road she had walked 100 times before. Drop a comment below and tell me, where are you watching from tonight? What time is it there? What does the sky look like outside your window right now? I ask because cold cases like this one have a way of hitting different depending on where you live. And I want to know where this story is landing. Now, let's go back to 1967. To understand what happened to Marianne Schuett, you first have to understand the world she disappeared from. Because 1967 Canada was a different country. Not just in technology, not just in culture, in something more fundamental than that. It was a country where parents sent their children outside after breakfast and expected them home for dinner. Where a 10-year-old walking 400 yards alone was not remarkable. It was Tuesday. Where a village like Kilbride, Ontario, a quiet community on the outskirts of Burlington, about an hour southwest of Toronto, was exactly the kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. Kilbride in 1967 was the kind of village you could describe in a single sentence. Everybody knew everybody, and the worst thing that ever happened was a bad harvest or a flooded basement. The roads were gravel. The houses were modest. The school was a small brick building where children had been learning their lessons for generations. And the path from that school to the Schuett family home was 400 yards of familiar, ordinary road that a small girl had walked so many times it had become invisible to her. Just a walk home. Just 4 minutes of the afternoon. Marianne Schuett was born in 1956 or 1957. She would have been 10 years old in April of 1967, in the upper years of her time at Kilbride Public School. Those who knew her described her as quiet, mild-mannered, the kind of child who listened when adults spoke, who followed the rules, who would not, under any normal circumstances, do something as extraordinary as getting into a car with a stranger. The OPP missing person poster from the time describes her, in careful official language, as very mild-mannered. Think about those words. Very mild-mannered. The kind of detail that a parent tells a police officer when they're trying to say, "My child knew better." She would not have gone willingly. Something was wrong. She had a younger brother named Steve. He was 5 years old when Marianne disappeared, so young that his memory of life before she vanished barely exists. His childhood, his sense of family, his understanding of the world, all of it was shaped by her absence rather than her presence. Decades later, as a grown man sitting on a memorial bench outside his sister's school, Steve Schuett described what it had meant to grow up in the shadow of an unanswered question. Just picture all of a sudden somebody in your life is gone, and you don't know why, where, how. Are they dead? Are they alive? That is what the Schuett family has lived with for 57 years. Not grief in the conventional sense. Not the terrible but finite process of mourning someone who is gone. But something harder. Something with no end point, no closure, no final chapter. The specific, relentless pain of not knowing. The spring of 1967 was unremarkable in Kilbride. Cool, overcast, the kind of Ontario April where the trees are still mostly bare and the ground still holds the memory of winter. A Thursday afternoon, the school day ending, children spilling out through the doors and heading home across the village. Cars moving slowly through the gravel roads, and Marianne Schuett stepping out into that ordinary afternoon with 400 yards between her and her front door. It is approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, April 27th, 1967. The school day at Kilbride Public School is over. Children are leaving through the main entrance down the driveway, scattering toward their homes across the village. The light is flat and gray, the kind of spring afternoon that is neither warm enough to linger outside nor cold enough to hurry. Just ordinary. Just another Thursday. Marianne Schuett leaves through the school driveway. She is wearing a red and beige reversible jacket, a green plaid skirt, blue running shoes. Her brown hair, cut just to ear length with bangs, is exactly as it appears in her school photograph. She is 4 feet 6 inches tall. She weighs 75 pounds. She turns toward home, 400 yards. We know what happens next only because of 2 men who were in the right place at a moment that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They were workers driving home from the American Motors plant nearby, a factory that employed hundreds of people from across the Burlington area. They were heading down the same road Marianne was walking, and what they saw through their windshield and then through their rearview mirror is the only witness account that exists for the final confirmed moments of Marianne Schuett's life. At the edge of the school driveway, a car was stopped. It was small, compact, dark blue or black, a European model with a distinctive chrome strip running across the back. Investigators would later focus their attention on a dark blue Renault station wagon as the most likely match, though this was never definitively confirmed. A man was seated inside the vehicle. His window was down. He was talking to a small girl in a red jacket. The 2 workers from the American Motors plant drove past. One of them watching in his rearview mirror as the car and the girl shrank into the distance behind him, saw Marianne get into the vehicle. The car pulled away. It drove straight past the Schuett family home. That is the last confirmed sighting of Marianne Schuett. No one has seen her since. The man in the car was described as approximately 40 years old. Thin face, glasses with light-colored frames. He was also noted, in some accounts, to have been wearing a canvas fedora hat. A police composite sketch, released in the days and weeks that followed, shows a narrow-featured man with the kind of face that might have seemed unremarkable in any crowd. The kind of face you might forget if you weren't looking for it. But these witnesses were looking for it, because within hours, it would become the most important face in southern Ontario. Now, here is the detail about that car that I want you to sit with for a moment, because it matters more than it might seem. The workers said the dark car drove straight past Marianne's house. Straight past, which means whoever was driving that car knew where she lived, or was specifically not dropping her off there. Either way, there is a deliberateness to that detail that is impossible to ignore. Marianne wasn't reported missing for several hours after she left school. In 1967, without mobile phones, without the instant communication we take for granted now, the machinery of a missing persons investigation moved slower. Parents waited, then worried, then called. When it became clear she was not coming home, the Halton and Ontario Provincial Police were alerted. And within days, this quiet village would become the center of one of the largest community searches in the region's history. 2 days after Marianne Schuett walked out of her school and got into a dark blue car, investigators made their first and only physical discovery. On a roadside near Highway 25 in the Speyside area, approximately 14 kilometers from Kilbride Public School, police found a single blue running shoe. Marianne Schuett, 14 kilometers. Think about that. A 10-year-old girl's single running shoe, found 14 kilometers from where she was last seen, on the side of a highway, alone. No second shoe, no clothing, no trace of the child herself. Just one blue canvas running shoe, and then nothing. There is one more detail from those first 2 days that has never been fully explained. A witness came forward to report that in the 2 days following Marianne's disappearance, around the time her shoe was being found on the roadside, they had seen a nervous-looking man at a picnic spot near Dundas. He was cleaning out his vehicle, not washing it at a gas station, not giving a quick wipe in a driveway. He was at an isolated picnic area, empty, off the main road, methodically cleaning his car with a dry cloth. The vehicle was a dark blue Renault station wagon. The location was not far from where Marianne's shoe had been found. Whether this was the same man, whether the car was the same car, whether this nervous stranger cleaning his vehicle in an empty picnic spot had anything to do with Marianne Schuett. These are questions that investigators asked for decades, and to this day, they remain unanswered. When the scale of what had happened became clear, the response from the surrounding community was extraordinary. 18,000 people. Let me say that again, because the number is almost impossible to process. 18,000 volunteers, police officers, community members, and concerned strangers spread across the fields, forests, and roadways of the Burlington area in the weeks following Marianne's disappearance. School groups, church groups, motorcycle clubs, neighboring families, strangers from cities hours away who had read about a small girl in a red jacket and decided they had to do something. Helicopters swept the land from above. Ground teams walked in organized grids across farmland and through woodlands. Every drainage ditch, every abandoned building, every stretch of rough ground within the search perimeter was examined. They found nothing. Not a piece of clothing, not a footprint, not a single physical trace of Marianne beyond the one blue shoe already discovered on the Highway 25 roadside. The man in the dark blue European car had, it seemed, vanished as completely as the girl he had taken. Police released the composite sketch widely. Thin face, light-rimmed glasses, canvas fidolat. Tips came in, leads were followed. Some witnesses believed they had seen this man after Marianne's disappearance. Some reported similar vehicles in similar areas. The plate number of the cleaning car at the Dundas picnic site was reportedly recorded by one witness. But this detail, tantalizing as it sounds, never led to a confirmed identification. One by one, the leads went cold. Weeks became months. Months became years. The case was never officially closed. It remains open with the Halton Regional Police Service to this day, but the active investigation, the daily work of searching and following leads, inevitably wound down. The 18,000 people went home. The helicopters stopped flying. The fields fell quiet again. And in a house in Kilbride, a family tried to understand how to keep living inside a question that would not be answered. Before we go further, if you have made it this far into this story, you already care about what happened to Marianne. And I want you to know, you're not watching this alone. Thousands of people across Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom care about these cases. They watch, they share, they talk about them. That is the only reason cold cases like this one stay alive. So do something right now. Share this video with one person. Send it to someone who cares about justice, who remembers 1967, who lives in the Burlington area. Because somewhere out there, someone knows something about a dark blue European car and a man with a thin face and glasses. And your share might be the thing that reaches them. Now, let us talk about what the investigators found and what they suspected. There's a specific kind of grief that belongs to families of the missing. It is not the grief of loss in the conventional sense, that terrible, painful, but ultimately finite process of accepting that someone you loved is gone. It is something harder than that, something with no name that quite fits. It is the grief of suspension, of being held year after year in the space between knowing and not knowing. Unable to mourn fully because there is no confirmed death. Unable to hope fully because the years keep accumulating and the silence keeps growing heavier. Steve Schuett was 5 years old when his sister walked out of school and didn't come home. He did not grow up with Marianne. He grew up with her absence, with the space at the dinner table where she was supposed to be, with parents carrying a weight that never lifted, with a community that remembered, and a case file that remained open, and a question that never had an answer. When he speaks about his sister, which he has done publicly with a courage that is both remarkable and heartbreaking, he does not speak like a man who has found peace with what happened. He speaks like a man who has learned to carry something uncarryable. Just picture all of a sudden somebody in your life is gone, he has said, and you don't know why, where, how. Are they dead? Are they alive? It's baffled our family forever. It baffled the investigators too, not for lack of effort, not for want of care, but because the man in the dark blue car, whoever he was, had left almost nothing behind. One shoe, one witness sighting, one nervous stranger cleaning a car in an isolated parking area. A composite sketch that circulated across the region and led nowhere. A case file that grew heavier with unanswered questions and lighter on viable leads with every passing year. The 1970s passed, the 1980s, the 1990s. Steve Schuett grew from a 5-year-old boy who barely understood what was happening into a middle-aged man who had spent his entire adult life with Marianne's absence as a fixed coordinate of his world. And still, no answer, no resolution, no closure, just a file, still open, still waiting. And then something shifted, not because of a new witness, not because of a technological breakthrough, but because of a retired police officer who, as a 14-year-old boy growing up in Burlington, had seen a small girl's picture in a newspaper and never been able to forget her face. At some point in the years that followed Marianne's disappearance, investigators developed a suspect. His name has never been publicly released. That is important, and I want to be clear about why, because it matters for everything that comes next. In Canada, as in most democratic countries, a person is legally presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The man investigators identified as the most probable suspect in Marianne's disappearance was never charged, was never tried, was never convicted. His name, by law and by principle, remains protected. What we know about him, what has been reported through official channels and court proceedings connected to related crimes, is this: between 1971 and 1978, several years after Marianne vanished, the same individual came under investigation in connection with sexual assaults against 2 young girls in the Ancaster area of Ontario. The victims were not adults. They were children. One was 3 years old. The other was 9. These crimes were not reported immediately. This was the 1970s. The systems for reporting, for believing, for protecting child victims of sexual violence were not what they are now. Victims carried what happened to them in silence, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. In December 1990, 23 years after Marianne disappeared, one of the alleged victims came forward to report what had been done to her, and that disclosure prompted the second victim to step forward as well. Police began building a case. They had 2 victims. They had testimony. They had what they believed was a credible connection to the disappearance of Marianne Schuett more than 2 decades earlier. The timelines aligned. The geography aligned. The description of the perpetrator aligned with a composite sketch that had been distributed across Ontario in 1967. Investigators believed, and this is the word they used officially in the language of policing, that this individual was the most probable person responsible for what had happened to Marianne. Most probable, not certain, not charged, not proven, but most probable. And then he died. He died before charges could be laid, before he could be brought into a courtroom, before any victim, living or dead, could face him and hear an answer. He took whatever he knew, wherever Marianne was, whatever had happened on that road in April 1967, with him. Police were careful in their public statements. They acknowledged the connection. They confirmed he was the most probable suspect. They also confirmed that there were insufficient grounds to have formally charged him before his death. And they acknowledged, with the honesty that distinguishes good investigators from bad ones, that they could not rule out the possibility that someone else was involved. Most probable, not certain. And so the file remains open. Because most probable is not an answer. Not for Steve Schuett. Not for the investigators who spent years building a case that was never heard. And not ever, for a 10-year-old girl who deserved to walk 400 yards and come home. I need to pause here for a second, because if you are from the Burlington area, if you lived near Kilbride in 1967, if you remember a dark blue European car, or a thin-faced man with glasses and a canvas hat, or anything unusual in the days around April 27th of that year, the Halton Regional Police Service still has this case open. It is never too late to speak up. It is never too late to give a family an answer. The number is at the end of this video. Please stay until the end. And if this story is moving you, subscribe. Because next week there's another file, another name, another family still asking. There's a man named Gord Collins. He is a retired Peel Regional Police officer. He spent the working years of his career in forensic identification. The careful, technical, precise science of finding what criminals leave behind and building a record of truth from physical evidence. He is now retired, and in his retirement, he has chosen to spend his time trying to find a girl who disappeared when he was 14 years old. Collins grew up in the Burlington area. He was a teenager in April 1967, and like much of Southern Ontario, he remembers the moment he saw a small girl's picture in the newspaper and understood that something terrible had happened close to home. I saw her picture in the paper, he has said, and it kind of burned into my brain. I never forgot about it. He never forgot. And when the opportunity came, decades later, to work on Marianne's case in retirement, he did not hesitate. He partnered with Linda Gillis Davidson, a former inspector with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, also retired, also committed to the idea that retirement is not a reason to stop caring about justice. Together, beginning in the summer of 2019, Collins and Davidson began what can only be described as a labor of love and grief and professional determination. They scanned old articles. They built timelines. They cross-referenced similar cases from the same period across the region. They searched land north of Milton, an area they believed, based on their research, might hold answers that had eluded investigators for 50 years. And on April 27, 2022, the 55th anniversary of Marianne's disappearance, Collins organized something that is, in its quiet simplicity, one of the most moving things I have encountered in researching this story. He arranged for the bells of Kilbride United Church to ring at exactly 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the same time Marianne walked out of her school. The bells rang 10 times, once for each year of her life. She hasn't been forgotten, Collins said. 3 words, spoken by a retired police officer standing in a village where a girl disappeared 55 years ago. 3 words that somehow carry the weight of everything the case has been and everything it still is. She hasn't been forgotten. Steve Schuett, now in his 60s, sitting on the memorial bench that was placed outside his sister's school, has described himself as an optimistic pessimist. He hopes for the best. He prepares for the worst. Unless something jumps out from somewhere, he has said, if somebody speaks up and says something, this will probably be the last real hard effort anybody puts into it. Those words carry a terrible weight, because what Steve Schuett is describing, what he is living, is the gradual, painful recognition that the window for answers may be closing, that the witnesses are aging, that the leads are thinning, that the people who were there in 1967, who drove past the school driveway and saw a man in a dark blue car, are themselves disappearing, and with them, possibly, the last chance for an answer. Today, in 2026, Marianne Schuett's case remains officially open with the Halton Regional Police Service in Burlington, Ontario. She would be in her late 60s now, born in 1956 or 1957, if she is alive somewhere. And investigators acknowledge they cannot confirm otherwise. She would be a woman in her late 60s, possibly with children, possibly with grandchildren, possibly with no memory or knowledge of who she really is. That possibility that somewhere out there a woman is living a life she did not choose under a name that is not hers is one that investigators have not dismissed. DNA genealogy databases have changed the landscape of cold case resolution in ways that seemed impossible even a decade ago. Cases that went cold in the 1960s and 1970s are being reopened and resolved by DNA matches that connect victims and perpetrators through family trees. The technology exists. The databases exist. The possibility exists. What does not yet exist, what has not yet arrived after 57 years, is an answer for the Schuett family. For Steve Schuett, the 5-year-old boy who grew up without his sister, now sitting on a bench outside a school in a village that changed the day the car drove away. For the investigators who searched 18,000 strong across the fields of southern Ontario and found one blue shoe. For Gord Collins, who saw a girl's picture in a paper when he was 14 years old and never, in all the decades since, stopped thinking about her. 400 yards. That is where we end. Not at a resolution, not an answer, not at a moment of closure that would let this file be marked complete and put away on a shelf somewhere. We end where we began, at a quiet gravel road in a small Ontario village. On a spring afternoon in 1967, with a 10-year-old girl in a red reversible jacket, 4 feet 6 inches tall, greenish-blue eyes, brown hair with bangs, standing at the edge of a school driveway with her home less than 4 minutes walk away. She spoke to a man in a dark blue car. She got in. The car drove away. And from that moment, from that one ordinary, unremarkable seeming exchange on a Thursday afternoon in April, the story of Marianne Schuett became a story without an ending. Somewhere in southern Ontario, or somewhere in the world, there may be someone who knows something. Someone who saw a thin-faced man with glasses on a country road in the spring of 1967. Someone who heard something, or found something, or was told something, and carried it quietly for decades, not knowing what to do with it. If that person is you, or if you know someone who carries that weight, please reach out. The Halton Regional Police Service cold case line is 905-825-4777. The tip line for Crime Stoppers is 1-800-222-8477. It is never too late. It is never too late to give a family an answer. Every file has a story. Not every story has an ending. If this story stayed with you, if Marianne's case is the kind of story that follows you after you close the screen, then you're exactly who this channel is built for. Please subscribe to Unfinished Dossier. Like and ring the notification bell, because next week there is another case, another name, another file that was never closed. Another family still waiting for an answer. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you think happened. Tell me where you were watching from. Tell me whose case you want me to cover next. And if you know someone who cares about justice, share this video with them. Because the more people who know Marianne's name, the better the chance that someday someone finally answers the question her family has been asking for 57 years. I am Unfinished Dossier, and this file is not closed.